obviously, we're happy to get the win. We didn't feel like we had played a clean game in the first half, and we challenged them to come out and play better in the third quarter. And what that meant is in the first half and some of the beginning of the third quarter, when the shots weren't falling, we started to talk about when we were on the arc, we were jogging through our cuts, and we needed to be violent and execute our cuts violently. We needed to sprint through things. And then when we did have the ball in our hands, we needed to attack space. And once we started to do that, that's when our lead really started to become larger later in the third. And then some people made some shots. This is a great team win from Laya Soleil early in her success to Precious Johnson late in her success. Fatu making threes early, Tess making threes late. And then Libby and Meg, our 2 point guards, rebounding the ball and being 10-1 assist to turnover ratio for the game. Just a really good team win overall. And so we challenged our kids that, I think we've beaten Mason a fair amount over the years, and we told our kids this is not the Mason team that anyone knows. These are all new kids. They don't know the history of the series, and they're scrappy and they're tough and they're gritty, and they were going to give us their best shot, and they did. Kudos to Coach Vanessa. She's got that program on the right track.
Dan, how much, you mentioned the second half, when they execute what you guys are calling for and they can see the response and see that instant gratification, with where this team is at now, how important is that procedure for them?
Well, it feels a little bit different, but Sunday's going to be a really big test because LaSalle is very well coached and they play to their system very well. Right now, things are feeling a little bit different. We're not playing perfectly, but we're in a situation where we continue to take positive steps forward. And those positive steps are listening and then executing the game plan. At halftime, I challenged Precious to not pick and pop on everything, but instead pick and roll, and then not to wrestle with smaller defenders, but get low. Don't stand there like the Statue of Liberty. I told her low man wins, low woman wins. So post low and wide so you have that lower base. And that's what Precious did, and Precious had a lot of success in the second half. It's starting to feel a little different.
You mentioned the success throughout the game. Laya early, Precious late, Fatu early, and Tess late, and then going back and forth between Megan and Libby. The last time I believe you and I talked, this was after the Lafayette game, and you were talking about how this team was coming off injuries, and you were still trying to find that flow and everything. Now you've got a good number of players to rotate in. There's a lot more of a flow with this offense. Does it feel like now you're turning that corner? It's the same question I asked Fatu and Precious. Does it feel like now everybody's turning the corner because you're having enough players contribute and the identity is more set in stone there?
Yeah, I don't like to call it turning the corner as much as we continue to take steps and progress forward. And we were doing that even when we had tough losses. Now those losses are wins. So in a sense, we're turning a corner. We're taking a little bit bigger steps. We had very limited personnel in November. And in some ways, we still have people that our seniors in Libby and Hallie and Laya still have, nagging injuries that are, it'll be hard for Libby to walk tomorrow. When you play 38 minutes with the knee that she has, it's going to be awfully tough for her tomorrow. And that's why, if I can get her out for a minute or two here and there, we want to keep her mileage down as much as possible. But we have a good core of 8. Our first sub every game for the last 3-4 games has been bringing Hallie, Amaya, and Precious off the bench, and I feel really good with bringing those 3 into the game and keeping our 2 guards that are playing well. And then I've tried to insert either Anaya Walker or Natalia into the game a little bit to play with some veterans to give them a minute or two and give our veterans some rest and see if they can have some success with us. And that's probably what we'll continue to do.
Libby was a basket short of 1,000 for everything that was going on with this game. And it wasn't like they were bad looks, they just weren't falling. But for her to still contribute, 3 assists, 8 rebounds, she was still getting other teammates involved. I know I asked you this literally sitting outside here, but for the record, what does this say about Libby as a teammate, the fact that she's able to look past everything going on with her and still get other people involved?
You know, she was 1 for 9 and didn't shoot the ball well, but you're talking about 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 turnover. But the bigger contribution was not really a stat. It was her ability to break pressure and to get us going in transition, because we're best when we don't have to run sets and we can play in transition and play with some freedom. And she was really the best player on the floor tonight to do that. She was excellent getting the ball to the nail, getting the ball below the free throw line in transition. But, you know, a kid who's stuck a bucket away from scoring 1,000 points and she's looking to pass it, you know, it's just a situation where she doesn't really care about personal accolades. She's a kid that really cares only about winning. And that's the most important thing about her. And it's the defining characteristic of who she is and what her career will be at Duquesne.
Coach, you started off a little slower in the first quarter there, had what I think a 3-point lead at the end of the first quarter, had a much more significant lead at halftime. They came out in the third quarter, kind of knocked you in the mouth a little bit there, and then you finally ran away with it in the fourth quarter. What did you see from Mason coming out of halftime into the third quarter, and how did you adjust to it going into the fourth quarter to pull out the win?
You know, I really wasn't as focused on Mason as I was ourselves. And, you know, they went to a zone and that the ball was sticking in our hands a little too long, and that contributed, and shots just weren't falling. And so when shots don't fall, some of our Achilles heel is that we get down on ourselves a little bit, and our defensive effort and energy is not there. And so I called a timeout, and I got after him pretty good in that timeout about, you know, shots are not going to fall sometimes, but we got to have the effort and the energy. And they certainly answered the call later in the third quarter. You know, Mason made that run towards earlier. We couldn't make shots. You know, we had the looks that we wanted, just like the first quarter. We had wide open look after wide open look, and you know, they didn't go down. Precious Johnson was 0 for 2 today from the 3-point line, and you know, that's atypical for her. I think she had 2 good looks at it, but you know, we got to make sure that Precious is in here before games and gets her shots up before the game, so she's in rhythm. And so hopefully that'll change. But you know, to take Mason's best shot and say, okay, that's your best shot, we're not playing real well, and to come out of that, it gives you belief and it gives you energy. It's another small step and a bigger step that continues to breed success.
Was there a certain emphasis in the game plan coming in on how to deal with Amaya Scott, with everything she's able to do in the game? What was the approach with her?
You know, I said to the players, because Stasia King and I did the scout on this one. It's usually our assistant coaches, but Stasia, our video coordinator, and I did the scout, and really Stasia did the majority of it. She did a great job. We talked about the Scott girl as being arguably the most athletic player in the league. She is bouncy, and she's a super athlete, but with that, she also plays really, really hard. I thought we played really good team defense against her. There's one possession that I would have liked to have had back in the second quarter where we didn't have enough ball pressure on her, and we had 2 other people near her, and she just elevated up over Precious and made a 15-foot jumper. And what we talked about at halftime was, if you're going to help on that, understand she's not going to pass it. She's certainly not going to pass it to someone on the wing or in the corner. So you need to make her uncomfortable, and you need to be a heck of a lot closer to her. And I think we did that in the third and the fourth quarter. And overall for the game, for her to be 3 for 10 and only finish with 10, that's a good night. I think she was averaging 17, so good night.
Follow up to that, Dan, you mentioned Stasia helping you with the scout. Obviously, she's played for you in the past. Just how much confidence does that give in her knowledge of this program and her growth on the staff?
Stasia is very good with basketball. She's a very good X's and O's person. She knows the game very well, and she has an analytical brain. And so there's a reason why she's the video coordinator, and it's because she can break film down, and she can exploit tendencies. She can exploit weaknesses. She understands advantage and disadvantages. She knows how to find solutions for us to have success. And so I really like her in that role, and it's going to make her a really good coach. We probably won't be able to keep her really long because she's going to find an on-court role soon. She does a great job.
Was
And
this
it's great to have, and I have to say this, it's great to have alumni in those roles.
her first scout this year?
Yeah, but I mean, it was her first scout of really putting it a lot together because the person she was working with was a slug. He didn't get as much done, that being me. Typically, she helps the assistants a lot prepare for scouts, but this was really kind of the one that she could own, and she did a great job with it.
The 3-pointer from the corner at the end of the third, that Tess knockdown. After that stretch where she had open looks, they just weren't falling like you mentioned, but the team as a whole wasn't shooting that well in the corner. Two-parter. A, how big was that for the team as a whole to knock that shot down in the corner and start the fourth quarter on a different note? And B, what was your thought about how Tess, even though she wasn't knocking down shots, she still looked for good looks, still had good form, good rhythm and everything. She just stuck with it the whole way.
Shoot or shoot, and you can't criticize any of the shots that she took tonight. It just took her a little while to get warm. I mean, she had open looks, and they were all good shots. My only criticism of Tess tonight was on the one turnover where she was just over one stride over half court, and she threw a cross court to Fatu on a bad pass. And what I told her there is everyone in the gym knows you're the best shooter in the gym. Drive it hard to the top of the key, and you're going to suck all of that defense in. And now it's a shortened pass, and Fatu is wide open in a shot-ready position, and you have a much better opportunity. And so that's a great learning point for her. And, Tess Meyer's a pretty good player. And so you just got to keep letting kids who can really shoot themselves out of a slump like that. And that was a little slump to start the game.
Coach, you talked to us on Monday about pulling your post players towards the free throw line. It seemed like Precious kind of dominated much lower and deeper than that, especially in the fourth quarter. Was that a matchup or a game plan decision, or?
That was a matchup. It wasn't really a game plan decision. We saw that when in the first quarter, in the second quarter, when they were playing behind Laya, you do that at your own peril when you're playing one-on-one against Laya in the low block, especially with someone of equal size. She can get her shot off, and when she crab walks, in other words, takes a dribble and then a second dribble, and she moves the defense then shifts and has to move, and she has that spin back or she has the hook. She's very, very hard to stop there. And what we saw, again, was Precious being challenged at halftime to not pick and pop, but to pick and roll. And, I mean, there was a lot of contact. I mean, it was they were very physical with her in the low block, and she took a lot of pounding and still scored. And I'm really happy because two of our young people in Tess Myers and Precious were able to not maybe start the game well, shooting the ball, but finish the game shooting it very well. And that breeds confidence for them. Thank you. I appreciate everybody being here, and I appreciate you supporting women's basketball.